Hi, Tricia.
Hi there. How you doing?
Hi, I'm fine. I'm on my old reliable iPad rather than my flashy new MacBook. I'm going to have to do a little work to get that new one going.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the teleconference. This is the Library Advisory Commission, LAC, for November 14th, 2022. This meeting is being recorded and streamed live to YouTube. The chair of the commission, Lindsay Bass, will now call the meeting to order. Please stand by.
Thank you, Moderator Jones. Clerk Simona Vargas, will you please call the roll?
Jennifer Mount is absent. Mary Ripma.
Here.
Mike Termini.
Here.
Pamela Woll.
Here.
Tricia Wynne.
Here.
Vice Chair Rena Dubin is absent. And Chair Lindsay Bass.
Here. And that brings us to the second item on our agenda tonight, which is adoption of the agenda. Do we have a motion to adopt?
I move that we adopt the minutes.
Second.
So we have a motion and a second to adopt tonight's agenda. Clerk Simona Vargas, will you please do a roll call vote?
Jennifer Mount is absent. Mary Ripma.
Aye.
Mike Termini.
Aye.
Pamela Woll.
Aye.
Tricia Wynne.
Aye.
Vice Chair Rena Dubin is absent. Chair Lindsay Bass.
Aye. That brings us to item 3 on the agenda for tonight, which is oral communications. During this time, any member of the audience may address the board on any matter either on or off the agenda that is within the board's jurisdiction. Note, however, that the board is not able to undertake extended discussion or act on non-agendized items. Such items can be referred to staff for appropriate action, which may include placement on a future agenda. If you intend to address a subject that is on the agenda, please hold your comments regarding that item until it is before the board so that we may properly address all comments on that subject at that time. In general, 3 minutes will be permitted per speaker during oral communication. And I'll look to Moderator Jones to see if we have any oral communications for tonight.
Chair Bass, we do not have any public comment.
Okay, that
Oh, wait, hold on a second. Okay. Cynthia Matthews, your hand is up. Your 3 minutes starts as soon as you begin talking.
Thank you. Well, I'm speaking this evening on behalf of the committee, Santa Cruz for Real Library and Housing Solutions, otherwise known as the No on O campaign. And I want to thank you, the Library Advisory Committee, for your endorsement of our campaign early on. I know you thought very long and hard about the process of making that and the issues that were involved. And we really appreciate the thought that you gave to it. I think you followed it, that there was a very wide spectrum of people concerned with this campaign and endorsing the No on O campaign. But you, along with the Friends, were the voice of library users, and not just the downtown branch, but the whole system. So we really appreciate that you took the holistic view and the long-term view of what Measure O meant to Santa Cruz Public Libraries. So I just want to speak on behalf of the entire committee. We had a great committee. So thank you collectively as the LAC and individually. Many of you were very helpful as well as individuals. So that's all I have to say. Thank you. And we really look forward now to moving forward. That's it.
Thank you for your comment. Chair Bass, I believe that ends public comment.
Great, thank you. And just a quick comment on that. As we move, I know that the results on the measure are still outstanding and to be determined. So we'll wait for those final tallies to come through. And I'm hopeful that regardless of that outcome, that to the commenters' point, that we can now begin to move forward together collaboratively as a united community to bring forward a wonderful downtown library branch. So with that, close oral communications, and I will move on to item 4, which is our report by our library director. So I will hand over to Director Wilburn.
Thank you, Chair Bass. Good evening, everyone. I have included my library director's report in your packet for your review. I will just touch on a couple of items. One, this past Friday, I had the opportunity to go out to the Brancaforte Library to walk around. We're still awaiting the glass to finish up that project, but it is really looking spectacularly beautiful. The patio is just gorgeous. I'm so thrilled that we're going to be opening that soon. So again, we're still waiting on the glass. I do not want to predict something earlier than we can deliver, recognizing that the glass hopefully will get to us by, we're being told, mid to late December. We are, with the holidays thrown in there, we're just anticipating we will be able to take possession of the building. That means our staff can actually start going in and unpacking books and putting things where they should be, probably at some point in January. It does take about 6 to 8 weeks for us to do everything we need to do in the facility. This is a complete gut rehab, and so there is literally nothing in there. We have to put everything back in. So again, that's probably going to take us a good 6 to 8 weeks. So we're anticipating Brancaforte opening up probably in late February, early March, just being realistic. We don't want to rush it. We want to make sure things are done correctly. And then the other thing that I'd love to mention is that we had Senator Laird stop by our Scotts Valley branch on November 3rd, earlier this month. And Senator Laird toured the facility, which was really great, and then actually hung out and read a story time for our children. So as you know, early childhood literacy is one of the big pieces that we do at the library. And so having the senator come out to read was really a special moment. So we're very appreciative of that. And I know, Chair Bass, you were there with your group from on another level, and had the opportunity to have Senator Laird stop in and speak with your group as well while you were there. So really just so glad to welcome people into the community room there. It's just beautiful. If you do get to book a room there, you'll enjoy, and that patio, thanks to our friends of the Scotts Valley Library, is just spectacular. So with that, I will close my report unless there are any other questions that you have for me.
I do have a quick question, and if this is inappropriate, you can absolutely tell me, but because my library Aptos branch is closed, I am at Capitola branch at least once a week. And it's so lovely. I just absolutely so enjoy going. But for about the last 3 or 4 months, one of the electric vehicle chargers has been out. And I'm wondering, like, who is responsible for that? I can't imagine the library being responsible for that. Is somebody else supposed to fix that, or how does that work? And the reason I'm asking is because I know the Aptos library will have this, and I want to kind of make sure that we're on top of it.
Yes, thank you, Commissioner Wynne. We do have charging stations at our Capitola branch. Felton also has them. So currently, we actually contact the vendor that handles those and then try and get them to come out and do repair. We are looking at having the city take over because the city has a contract for electric charging stations around town. And so our thought is that that might be a better solution for us long-term, to have the city include our charging stations under that contract to make sure that they're being serviced regularly. But we do reach out, we contact the vendors to try and get them out to fix and make the repairs.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions on the library director's report? I'll just make a quick comment that we were driving out of after visiting Staff of Life on the east side, and it was the lights had gone up at the Branch Authority branch, and we were just like, oh my gosh, it looks great. So it's really, really fun to see the changes happening. And it's really clear that, as you mentioned, it's a gut job, but wow, like what a big change that's going to be to the inside of that space. So really, that's how excited I was. So I imagine surrounding community members are getting excited as well as they start to see those signs of change and progress at that site. So yeah, it's been fun getting to enjoy the different new branches as well. Yeah. And many thanks to you and your staff and to the Friends for all the work creating such a beautiful Scotts Valley branch. So that was, we had a fantastic time. I see Mary made a note with her hand. Mary, do you have questions?
On page 6, we're talking about the story walk. And I'd like to understand better, how can I participate?
Sure. The story walk actually is still up. So what you can do if you go to the downtown library, there are pages of the story in the front windows of the library. So you can start by reading that story and then follow along this little map here. You can stop in the branch and they can certainly provide you with a map, but then you can follow the trail, and to each one of the shops as you go through downtown, there is there's the map. That's great. Terrific. Thank you. So you can follow along the trail. It starts, as I said, at the downtown library there. It's in the window at the corner of Church and Locust. And then if you follow along, you'll be able to hit every store that has pages, and you can stop and read the storybook. It's a great activity for families. I was out there on the first opening day. We had a couple of wonderful families with their children who were out. We actually had some people who were not children. We had adults who were there and came out for it and thought it was a really wonderful opportunity to understand a little bit about the history of downtown Santa Cruz. And after hitting all of the shops, you actually end up walking up to the Santa Cruz County Mission State Historic Park. And so that is where it ends. But it was really interesting because I've been up there before, but I had not been. There's a little back stairway that has these beautiful mosaics that you can take if you follow the path, and they've got the gate open. But it just was really a lovely day. And then at the top there were, we had partners, several of our partners that we collaborate with participated. They would not be there now, but you certainly can do the walk and end up and tour the Mission State Park, which is really fantastic.
Okay, well, thank you.
Thanks for the question, Commissioner Ripma. Unless there are any other questions or comments, we will close item 4 and move on to item 5, which is the report by the Friends of Santa Cruz Public Libraries. And we have Executive Director Cotter here to share with us the latest and greatest from the Friends. Welcome, Bruce. Good to see you.
Thank you, Chair Bass. Nice to see you, Lindsay. Nice to see all of you. Over the past few months, along with working hard on the downtown library and affordable housing project and campaign, we've also been working on developing our budget for 2023. I'd like to thank Yolanda and Eric for their work in giving us a 2-year request, so we have some visibility looking forward into what our cycles are likely to look like. I will note that these requests are a little bit substantially higher than previous requests. We look forward to meeting them and working through all of that. Our primary focus moving forward through the end of this year and most of the beginning of next year is going to be a campaign we call Recover and Thrive, developed by our president, Janice O'Driscoll. We have all seen, I have certainly seen with my grandchildren, the effects of the pandemic on children's learning, on children's socialization. Our kids need library materials. They need safe and effective places that they can work. They need in-person experiences and hands-on learning, regardless of their social situation, language, culture, ability to pay, and we want to be able to provide that. So the goal of Recover and Thrive is to provide support to the library so that they can continue to offer meaningful activities during the balance of this school year and expand the already successful summer reading program into a more robust summer learning program so that these kids in K-12 are really positioned to excel when they go into the 2023 school year. We remain cautiously optimistic about the downtown library affordable housing project. The voting is trending in our favor, as we discussed a little earlier. We recognize, however, and I want to agree with what Chair Bass said. Honestly, we have a lot of work to do. Some 7,000 people voted in favor of Measure O so far. And I spoke with a lot of these folks during the lead up to the election. And, I know that they love the libraries. I know they have a different vision for the library than we had, but I look forward to, reaching out to them, working with them, having us all come together to work for the good of Santa Cruz and for the good of the library and having the kind of flexible and welcoming library that we really want to have. And then finally, I would like to express our gratitude to Jill Mitch and Laura Albrecht, who have been members, again, very effective, great members of our board of directors, but who are moving on for different reasons. I note that Laura has been a wonderful, creative, and energetic board member, and I saw her today as she was going through her onboarding to become an equally energetic and creative member of the Yolanda's library staff. I think it's particularly appropriate because she worked so hard on the Measure O campaign, and I love that she's going to be working in the downtown library. So you are getting a really good one there, Yolanda. So congratulations, good hire. And that's the extent of my report. Thank you for your time, unless you have any questions.
Great, thank you, Bruce. Are there any questions from commissioners? Great, thank you, Bruce, for being here. We'll look forward to our next update in the new year. That closes out item 5 on the agenda tonight, so we can move along to item 6, which is member reports. So for commissioners in attendance tonight, if you have any reports that you'd like to make, now is the time to do so. Commissioner Termini.
I just thought I'd give you some up-to-date photos of our new Aptos branch. This is, the roof is on, by the way. I know we had some pictures in our agenda, but these are a little more timely. It's all weathered in, HVAC is going in, electrical is going in. This is looking back at the entrance from the interior. It's very dramatic and wonderful. This is looking into the adult area. This is where the community, I guess, porch or the plaza will be. This is looking at it from the outside, from Soquel Avenue. The roof is on. It's all weathered in, and which is why we're beginning to do the other work. And if you ever get to the roof of the library, you do have an ocean view, and it's lovely. We go up there as much as we can.
Great.
And I think it will be on schedule or actually ahead of schedule.
Thank you so much, Mike. Oh, that's exciting.
And perhaps when we get to the point where the site is a little safer Yolanda, maybe we can get a little field trip out there for the board.
Very exciting developments. Thank you so much for sharing. Do we have any other member reports?
I just enjoyed the event for the Friends of the Library down in Aptos, and Yolanda and I went together, and I don't know, Yolanda, if you want to share what came of that, and if you all know that there were booths and you were getting stamped at each booth, and if you had 12 stamps, then you could enter a drawing for a $500 gift certificate at New Leaf. And Yolanda won.
Congratulations.
Thank you. I told Commissioner Ripma, I never win anything. You know, the only time I've won is when, you know, you must be present to enter, and then I leave and they're like, oh, you won. And I'm like, great. Yeah, it was quite the shock. So, but it was really a wonderful event. Thank you for mentioning that. It was a great opportunity for the Friends of the Library to do some fundraising at their booth. So yeah, definitely a very nice event.
Very good. All right. Well, with that, unless there are any other comments from commissioners, thanks for those positive updates, and we'll look forward to hearing more about progress in Aptos and more hopefully fun events from the Friends group. Thanks, Mary. All right, moving right along to item 7 on our agenda tonight is the consent calendar. We have 3 items on consent tonight. The first is our minutes from our July 18th meeting. So we did not meet in September, so those minutes are from a while back. Hopefully refresh everyone's memory. Recent articles about Santa Cruz Public Libraries, the reauthorization of the LAC remote teleconference, and then FY23 first quarter work plan. Are there any questions or comments on these consent items?
No, I would go ahead and move approval of the consent calendar.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a move first by Commissioner Wynne, a second by Commissioner Termini. I will just make a few comments. I wanted to echo some public feedback that we received on item B in the consent agenda. I would also like to commend Diane Cowan for pulling together these media packets. They are outstanding, fantastic. And it's really wonderful to be able to put them into the public record in that kind of compendium sort of fashion. So please extend our thanks and appreciation. We know that there's a lot of hard work that goes into that. Likewise, for the quarterly work plans that are assembled, we know that a lot of work and effort goes into that. So they're very, very helpful and valuable. Thank you. Commissioner Mount is absent tonight, but she did in writing indicate her acceptance of the consent calendar items. So I just want to mention that. With that, Clerk Sumano Vargas, would you please do a roll call vote?
Jennifer Mount is absent. Mary Ripma,
Aye.
Mike Termini,
Aye.
Pamela Woll,
Aye.
Tricia Wynne,
Aye.
Vice Chair Rena Dubin is absent, and Chair Lindsay Bass.
Aye. So the consent calendar moves with unanimous approval of those in attendance, with Vice Chair Dubin absent and Commissioner Mount absent. That brings us to item 8 on the agenda. So we have some really good presentations on the agenda for tonight. So we'll start with a presentation by management analyst Ye on the Censource people counters. So I will hand the floor over to Director Wilburn and management analyst Ye.
Thank you, Chair Bass. This evening, I'm happy to introduce to you our new management analyst, Gregory Ye. He is going to be doing a presentation on our Census people counters. As you're aware, these are a counting system for who's coming in the library, so we can do a better job of tracking time and how to staff, all of those good things. With that, Gregory, I will let you go ahead and take it away.
Hi, commissioners, members of the public. My name is Gregory. I'm a management analyst. I started this past August. So today I'm going to give you a brief overview of the Census people counter that's in 7 of our 10 branches right now. And this is just a brief overview, a very quick overview of the people counter. So as you can imagine, the benefits are immense. So we'll have improved data quality with this new people counter. Beforehand, there was not reliable data in our board packets, and this people counter gives us real-time access to the number of patrons in our branches. And of course, it'll address community need where if there's a high need for low patron counts, we can put a program on or address any community issues. And lastly, of course, is the safety issue where if there's an overcrowding in library branches, we'll know about it in real time where a manager can tell where if there's an overcrowding in our branches. The next thing is the locations. The sensors, as I mentioned earlier, they're in 7 of our 10 branches. They are in downtown Capitola, Boulder Creek, Felton, Scotts Valley, Garfield Park, and Live Oak. The ones without sensors right now, Branson 40 and Aptos, for obvious reasons, they're under construction. And the Selva Beach is right now, it's part of a rewiring grant where we're waiting for a grants proposal to have that sensor in La Selva Beach rewired, and it'll be coming online hopefully soon. So now the question is, how do these sensors work? I think when I looked at it and researched this, I think the best explanation was by San Francisco Public Libraries. They basically broke it down into 3 different steps, where this program is a proprietary system where it basically creates a stereo height map. So the first step, as you can see on the left-hand side where my cursor is pointing at right now, this is literally a shot of a person walking towards one of the doors. And as you can tell, it's a sensor that's placed on the ceiling. So it won't have a shot of the person's face, but basically the shot of the person's head. So nothing's being recorded. And how the system works, how San Francisco break it down is it creates a stereo height map. First, it sees that. It goes to the second step where it's a heat map, where it makes sure that person, it's an actual person, a human, where it won't, it's an actual human. Once once the system tells it's an actual human, it goes to the third step here, where it records the height of that person. As if you can tell, I just want to emphasize, if you go back to the first step, it's not a security camera where it's not recording anyone. It's basically telling the system, hey, this is the actual person. Once that person crosses this green line here, if you see my cursor, it counts that as a 1 person going in, and it goes to a cloud-based server where it counts as 1 person. The other thing is that it can count multiple people. So if there's a group of people that's going to the library, for example, or going out of the library, it can count a group of people. So the available data, the things that you saw on the previous screen, the library does not have access to that data. The only data that we have access to are tally counts. So we can break it down into specific area locations, each sensor, we can break that data down that way. And also we can break the data down into an overall library system. Some of the reporting features I'll show you right after this slide is dashboards, heat maps, and day and hour heat maps and data maps. And these are just ways that the data can be portrayed on the website. So at this point of the presentation, I'm actually going to switch my screen to show you the actual data that the library has access to. So if you can bear with me for a few seconds, I'm going to actually show you the website where we can get the tally counts. So this is view of an administrator. So the library currently has 3 administrators, me, myself, the principal management analyst, and also the IT director. So we have access to what you see on the screen right now. So on the left-hand side, you can tell there's 2 different, as I mentioned earlier, there's 2 different ways of, 2 big different ways of showing the data. First one is dashboards and also the data view. So I'm going to go over the dashboard on the left-hand side. There's actually 4 that I created myself, but there's a lot of different templates where you can portray the data into different ways of how you want to see it. But for me, I created only 4. So this one that you see on the screen right now, this is the overall branch stats. All branches are closed right now, and this is the actual data count for today. So you can tell today the traffic in is 1,885, and these are only for the branches that were open today. So Capitola, Downtown, Felton, Live Oak, and Scotts Valley, 1,885 people went into the branch. And in the previous week, you can tell this is plus 1% based on the same day of last week. The next one I created myself is the traffic for today. Most are down. And Capitola was exactly the same same number of patrons that went in today versus last week. Felton for today had a unusual, almost unusual high increase today. There was a plus 26.5%. We would have to look at data from previous weeks to find out what happened there. The next dashboard that I created myself was yesterday versus previous week. Yesterday was a Sunday, so not all branches were open, only Downtown and Capitola. So these data are available, and the rest were closed. So we can't really see what happened there because they were closed. The last dashboard that I created myself is week to today and versus last week. So right now, as of today, there was 2,547 people versus last week, there were 10,324. So on to the next big way of seeing the data is data view. So as I mentioned earlier, there's a data map. This is more for a management view of all the branches within our system. But of course, there's only 7 branches that's available, data for 7 branches that's available. This is more for, in my opinion, for management. And in here, a manager can click on closed hours. And once you click refresh, it'll only show you the data that's within the open hours for today. So as you can tell down here, the red part is a heavy number of traffic, and this is downtown. The blue neon, I guess neon blue, this is the least number of people. And you can tell Live Oak here is not that many folks that visited Live Oak today. The next one is the day hour heat map. I think this is pretty useful where it can show you a lot of, it's a strong method of way of capturing data. And as you see in my reports, I did Boulder Creek in my reports, but I will do downtown right now to show you how this works. So this basically shows you, let me do it really quickly so I can show you very quickly how this works. So this will show you data for the past 6 weeks, the closed hours, and also the average number of people going into the branch of downtown. So on the left-hand side, it's Sunday through Saturday. On the top, it shows you the hour. So 10 o'clock is when when it opens here, and 5 p.m. Basically it closes at 6 on Monday through Thursday. So the yellow, for example, right down here, it's medium about 100 people. The green is basically not that many people went in. The red is over 146 people that went in. So, for example, here, as an analyst, you can tell that there is an increase right here, and this is on a Wednesday at 1 p.m. So as an analyst, for example, from my part, I would want to find out what's the reason why there was an increase of number of patrons that went into the downtown branch on Wednesday at 1 p.m. And this can be for a number of reasons. If it was raining, if there was and people were seeking shelter in the library, to a program or event at Wednesday at 1 p.m. or simply there was just an unusual event that people just went into the downtown branch on a Wednesday that went in. So as an analyst, this is powerful data that, and also for a manager, it's powerful data to find out what's the reason why there was an increase. The next two are a heat map. This is another similar way of looking at data. I'll do very quickly month to date, each day, downtown again. And this is just another way of seeing the data by day. So you can tell here Monday and Tuesday on 11/7 and 11/7 and 11/8, there were an increase in number of people by day if you look at day part here. The last one is more for an analyst or someone who needs to look at the data. And this is a way of getting data to be exported to Excel. And I can do basically put in what I want. If there's a request that comes in, then this would allow me to export it to Excel. And you can tell this is by the number, the sensor, and I can save this and export it to Excel. So I'm going to go back really quickly to the slides. And these, the next few slides are just screenshots of what I just showed you. This is a data map. This is a day and hour heat map. This is the heat map. And with that, I'll take any questions.
I have a question, but it's for Yolande. Any big surprises?
No, not yet. I think that we are, we're really don't even have a good month's worth of data at this point. So I think that some of it we already knew. We know that certain locations, when school gets out, as an example, Felton, one of the things that I looked through, and I know that Felton is a beautiful new library. And at 3 o'clock on Thursdays, Felton gets loaded with people, right? That's one of their peak periods. We also can see, at 10 a.m., now that we're opening earlier, right, on the Fridays, there are people there and they're coming in at 10. So that was a good move to change our hours, right, to start earlier at 10 a.m. People want to get in the library at 10 a.m. You also can see later in the day, 5 p.m., maybe we're not so busy, and that's down the road, a question that we can look and use this data to say, hey, does it make sense for us to stay open later on that day or open earlier on another day, right? We can kind of get more information on how people are and when people are using our libraries so that we can have hours that really meet the needs of our public in the different communities, because each community may be different. So I think that's really at this point. I'm really not, because we don't have a good solid month and we've had some closure days since we've started this. We had the strike going on for a couple of days. We also had All Staff Day, which closed us. We've had Veterans Day now. So we just really want to get a good solid, once we get a year's worth of data, I think we'll be able to really see glean some real knowledge from this data. Yes. And I will just add to that we do see, as Greg pointed out in one instance, when we do programs, people come into the libraries. So we're seeing that. Yes. Go ahead, Commissioner Wynne.
Yeah, that's actually cool. And I figured that's probably information you would have anyway, but this is really going to make it, kind of empirical. So that's great. Gregory, thanks for that. That is really interesting. And it kind of has my mind going, just how much you'll be able to do with this kind of data. But do you have a sense of like how long people stay in the library. The reason I'm asking is like, I used to go to the library and just like look on the shelves, and browse the sections. And now I tend to order everything online and I get a ping and it's waiting for me at the front desk and I check it out on my phone. And, it's so quick anymore. The way I utilize the library is so different than it was 10 years ago. And are you going to be looking at that kind of data at the same time?
So I think this system allows us to look at how many people come in. It also allows us to look at how many people go out. And sometimes that can be a little interesting because you might have staff who come in from an entrance that's not tagged. And so you'll get more staff walking out when they go out for lunch, right? And so you'll get staff members who go out that way. But I think one of the things that we're looking to do with this information, we know that our ILS, there are also ways that our ILS, our catalog computer, where people check items out, we can actually see traffic through the ILS patterns where it can say, hey, at 11 o'clock, you had a lot of people waiting in line and checking things out, right? And so I think the combination of both of these can really help us to determine what are the staffing needs on our desks to be able to assist people. Should we have more people on the floor, right? How can we best serve our communities? Is that a good time to do programming? Is that not a good time to do programming? I think there's a lot of information we can get out of this, and we're going to use multiple sources, not just this one. I think it's that combination, as well as the good old fashioned, we have staff in the library who can tell us a lot of this as well.
Yeah, very cool.
Other questions from commissioners?
Yeah, just one question is the intent just to have, will it just be a single sensor at each library at the main door, or there intent to be more than that?
Some of our doors, we have one entrance, and so there's only one sensor. At other locations, there might be multiple doors where people enter from. And so when there are, as at Garfield Park, there's the front door, but then there's the ADA ramp door. And so people come in through both of those doors. And so we are tracking both of those doors in that instance. But in most of the locations where there's one clear door where people come in, that's where we're tagging. I should say we are not tagging specifically community rooms. So, after hours, people may enter the community room from the back side of the room. So those may not be counted. But again, that's where we can use some of our partners who, how many people came to your event, right? And then we can track it and gather that data that way, as opposed to through the people counter.
Good question. Other questions from commissioners? I had a few. I was curious if you could just say a little about the methods prior to installing this technology and the drawbacks of those and how this is improving your ability to basically track traffic patterns so that you can better manage staffing within the branches.
Sure. So previously, I think we had little sort of counters on the doors that were not necessarily reliable. And then it relied on people going out there every day and looking at it and going, okay, write that down. Now clear it to 0, right? Now write that down. And so, sometimes you get accurate information, sometimes you don't. And so this system just gives us a much more reliable real-time ability to track that. Previously, somebody would put that in a spreadsheet, and then at the end of the quarter, you get that spreadsheet where they've written in those totals and kind of tallied them. So this one, like I said, gives us the ability in real time. I don't know if you I think you did have the opportunity to see Chair Bass at the board, at the Library Joint Powers Authority Board. That was at 9 o'clock in the morning, and Gregory did his presentation at 9:15. And you could already see with the live version, okay, the doors are open at 10 and or 10:15 he did his, the doors open at 10 and people are walking in, right? There it is, that count's going up. And so that is where this one is much more efficient at capturing the real-time statistics.
And just to follow up, in his presentation, Gregory, you had some screenshots from an application in San Francisco. And I'm just curious, are you guys talking with other libraries within the state or that are using this software and solution for ideas on, how to really leverage its power?
Yeah, absolutely. We know that there are a number of libraries. I know other libraries that I've worked at. We've used the SendSource people counting system. And it's for exactly this reason that we get real-time and really accurate counts. This is extremely important as you think about, and we're just now getting back into post-COVID reopening in January. We're going to expand our hours a little bit more for some of our branches that are closed on Monday. Those are going to open on Mondays now. And so our goal is to open those. We can track the traffic patterns. And then we want to get feedback from our public, right? That's where we can begin to send out surveys and say, hey, do we really need to be open on Sunday at Capitola, right? Or hey, Aptos is open now and Capitola's people count is going down. Is there the need for expanded service there still, or should we transfer that service to another location? So that's where this really gives us the ability to do that. And also, I think tracking programs. When we know we've had a huge turnout for programs, we can say that's really an effective program that the community identifies with. It resonates with this community. We should be doing more programs like this because that's what people want to see. So I think there are a number of pieces to this. And yes, we are talking with other libraries. Greg did go to San Francisco Public as well as others. And I actually have gone to other libraries and asked them, hey, how do you like this system? Is it really worthwhile? Are we gleaning any additional information? And I think everyone who I've spoken to who has it, every library system that has it, is really very pleased with the results that they get.
Great, thank you. And apologies, one final question. And we did have a comment that came through with respect to cost of the system. And you've spoken to this somewhat in terms of, given the fact that staffing is a huge portion of the library's budget, the opportunity to be more efficient in the management of that, those resources. But can you talk a little bit just about the cost benefit analysis that went into the selection of this?
Sure. So this, again, you're correct. It did involve an immense amount of staff time to be able to, again, get those statistics, go out to the door, track it, write it down, put it in the spreadsheet, transfer that data. So this, we don't have to do that anymore. As you saw, it can be just downloaded in an Excel spreadsheet to create the report. We can set that report up how we want, so it can easily be managed. In addition, our library managers were taking those statistics and adding them to information for our state report. So the state library also wants our numbers. And so this is the most effective way for us to get our numbers in. That means funding for us, right? The more that they can see and the more accurate we are with our counts, the more grant funding that we potentially qualify for those state grants. So all of this is part of that, and being able to get that information that we need for our system to, in the long run, gain more money. Yes. And this is coming out of part of this is our general operating budget that the system is going to be coming out of. And so, yes, over time, we think that this is a really good investment for us for all of those reasons.
Great, thank you. I'm done now. We can turn to, unless there's any other commissioner questions, I'm going to turn to public comment to see if there's any questions from the public. Before I do that, I just want to apologize. On the consent calendar item, I did not take it out to the public, and I am very sorry about that. Moderator Jones tried to catch me, and I missed her chat reminder. So apologies to those of you that are listening to the meeting. I will do better, and now we will pause for any comments that we might have from those that are with us tonight.
Chair Bass, I see no public comment.
Okay. Are there any other final comments or questions from commissioners on this item? We only have the accept and file of this, so we don't necessarily need to do a vote on a presentation. So thank you so much, Gregory, for presenting this really, really interesting work that you guys have been doing. And welcome to the team too.
Oh, thank you.
So we'll move right along to our next presentation, which should be equally interesting, which is the strategic plan update. So I will hand the floor over to Assistant Director Howard.
Thank you very much, Chair Bass, and good evening, commissioners. I'm really excited to be here tonight. And I wanted to just also pause for one moment, because I did provide this presentation last week to the Joint Powers, and I launched right into it and shared my screen and took them through the strategic plan. And I thought, you know, I just wanted to reflect a little bit on what this very large endeavor is all about. And really just to remind us all that nobody from up high comes down and tells us what a public library is supposed to do. It's not written anywhere. It's not defined that this is what a public library is supposed to provide the community. That is entirely up to the public, and it evolves. The library, especially in this country, has evolved quite significantly over just the last 20 years. And we've gone through some incredible challenges as a country, as a community, and as a library system. And the library has really worked hard to adapt, and I think has been very successful at doing so. And that's why we come back every 3 years and ask the community again, what do you want from your community? It's a really unique institution. I would say there are very few institutions in the country that are free and available to everyone, no matter what your background is. You are invited to come into this space and meet your neighbors and take advantage of all the resources that we offer. And so that's again why we go back every 3 years and we ask, what can we do differently? How can we help this community meet the challenges that we're facing? And so that's what we've been doing. And I'm really pleased too, and I want to say thank you to the subcommittee that took the time and reviewed the draft strategic plan and gave us some really helpful, constructive feedback. And I'm going to share that with you right now, again, before I share the screen and take you through this, where we are right now with the strategic plan, because it synced up. The comments and input I got from the subcommittee really synced up, I think, in some really powerful ways with what our board shared with us last week. And the four, and the subcommittee can correct me if I'm wrong, the 4 major points that I received from our last meeting included the following things. It really saw a need to figure out how we can continue to reach out to the non-traditional users of the library.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's probably one of the most important things. And in particular, they gave us some very specific feedback on how to do that and to leverage the public space. These libraries are beautiful. We've gone through this enormous effort to renovate them. and to create these wonderful community spaces. So how do we leverage these community spaces to bring in non-traditional users? So I thought those 2 points were really, really important. The third was looking at customer service. How do we analyze all the different things that we offer? And a specific example was around holds, for instance. How do we know that, for instance, patrons who are waiting on holds are getting the holds in a timely fashion? And the fourth, which I haven't quite figured out how to wrap my mind around and how to put it into the strategic plan, but it was a wonderful comment, and it was how to demonstrate everything that we're currently doing right now in this strategic plan. How do we represent? And so to the work plan that we have in your packet and the media packet that Diane put together do help tell that story. Currently what we're doing, I'm not quite sure yet, but I'm still thinking it through how we demonstrate that in the strategic plan. But I have some ideas. I do have some ideas. And I just want to say now, the feedback that we got last week from the board, some of the points that I heard, and I love the way they synced up. From the county administrator, Carlos Palacios, he commented too about, and he was very specific with some really helpful points around how we can bring in the non-traditional users. He recommended that we contract out with some of the nonprofits that are working with them, and then very specifically provide food and dinner so that we can bring them in and get their feedback, so that we understand what they're, really what they want from us, and what we can do to address their needs. He suggested potentially bringing, having childcare too, because a lot of these non-traditional users, their time is really stretched, and so in order to really hear what they have to say, we have to provide focus groups that really support them and bring them in so that we can learn more about what they need. He also suggested stipends, which I did point out last week that our DEI plan actually calls for that, so that if we're going to go out and ask people for their time so that they can give us feedback for us, then we should provide some sort of stipend to them. And so the DEI plan does call for that as well. He also said too that the objectives, while probably appropriate at this time, are somewhat high level, but he would like to see down the road some more specifics about how we actually intend to get to where we're going. Those were some of his points, and then city manager and board member Goldstein was just provide some caution, because as you'll see as we walk through this plan, we are trying to collect some new data and trying to understand and do some better evaluation. He was cautious about, though he appreciates the outcome based direction that we're going in, that sometimes you can train to the test, and so we need to be cautious of that, and not spend too much time finding that right balance between the tension between getting the data, but then also doing the work, which I think is also really important to keep in mind. Commissioner Huffaker, board member Huffaker, city manager Huffaker, also emphasized the points that those two had around being intentional, around really supporting career growth, so that in our plan, in our DEI plan, when we're talking about trying to have our staff be more representative of the community, how we're going to be intentional about going out into the community, into those areas, and really nurturing individuals so that they can climb the ladder inside our organization. That was also a point that the county administrator had as well. The chair Legault, he really encouraged us to continue in collaboration. She spoke specifically about a multicultural event that Scotts Valley has with the city and the schools, and to make sure that we are part of that as well. And she invited us to that. And she was also encouraged by the fact that, as you'll see, we're going to take time as we develop what we hope to be a dashboard that will develop with over the next year. And so I'm gonna now show you what I showed them last week, which isn't yet available to the public, but will be after February, because the plan right now is to take it back to the board in February. We'll continue to collect feedback until then, and then we will make this piece public, this part public. So give me 1 second, and let's see if I can do this.
And I will just add in as Assistant Director Howard gets his screen placed up. You know, I know that we've had a couple of comments regarding literacy. And that with regard to the strategic plan, people want to make sure that we're still a library, that we're still providing literacy services. And so I want to just let everyone know that literacy is first and foremost what we do at libraries. So our intent is not to eliminate those literacy services. It's how do we make those literacy services better? How do we get those services out to a broader spectrum of the public who are not currently coming into the library? And so that's really what we're focusing on, is how can we bring in and how can we reach out to those other people in the community who maybe aren't taking advantage of those literacy services that we have. And that's financial literacy, that's health literacy, that's economic literacy, right? History, right? The history of this community. It's just really important that we look at it from a variety of different aspects. So while we have no intention of stopping doing the literacy piece, that is what first and foremost we do believe there's room for these expanded services and being able to reach out to other organizations and community members that we maybe haven't been serving as much as we should have. So with that, Assistant Director Howard, I will let you go ahead and begin.
Thank you. And I think too, just to that point, because it is central to this plan, there's you'll see in a moment, a significant focus on early literacy. But to the point that was raised in the previous presentation, programs really equal more patrons. So when we use these spaces, and if we use them strategically, we can bring in more patrons who can then take better advantage of the resources we have for early literacy and everything that we offer at the library. So I'm not going to take you through every piece of the strategic plan, but I really want to just demonstrate the lens that we're using and the basic architecture behind this plan. As I mentioned, we'll have this available online in February, and there are still some things that will be changing, but and we'll still be taking feedback until then. But this does provide the basic architecture of the plan. There's a pretty short introduction, and as I mentioned last week too, this is not entirely accurate because this says that it was a year-long process, but it was actually longer than that. And then also it was stalled initially because of the pandemic, and the board wisely allowed us to put it on pause for a year. That too, that was because of the pandemic, and because we were facing so much uncertainty, we thought it would be better to get to understand where we were at that moment in time and what we needed to do during the pandemic. That too, though, affected the lens, and it really affected how we are going forward. And that is to say, probably the biggest lesson we learned from the pandemic is that we need to adapt, and that we are going to be experiencing change on a pretty regular basis. And so this is really intended to be an adaptive strategic plan. And I'll talk more about that in just a minute, but it consists of 3 major chapters. The first is focused on diversity, equity, and inclusion needs. And that was developed largely by an internal team at the library. And we worked very closely with other libraries around the country to see what they were doing. And we are also working with a consultant right now who has helped us refine this. She's a Felton resident. The second chapter is focused on the Santa Cruz County community needs. The culmination of this work really encompasses many, many voices. And we ran surveys, we had community forums, and as Yolande said, we continue to take input on this, and we continue and will continue to for the life of this plan, which is going to be for 3 years. The third chapter is focused on staff values and organizational needs. So in 2021, we had an in-service day. We worked with the methodology here describes this a little bit more with the former director of San Jose Public Library, Jane Light. She took the staff through an exercise that helped us understand the areas where we can grow and some of our great potential that we have right now. It's called a SOARS exercise. But the internal strategic team initially developed a list of prioritized groups so that we didn't miss individuals in our community. And this is a group that we trained staff on running conversations and moderating conversations with community members. And so we made sure that we had community conversations with all of the prioritized groups in this list. As I mentioned at the beginning or earlier, San Jose Public Library Director Jane Light did the SOARS exercise, which stands for Strengths, Opportunities, Aspirations, and Results. And out of that came the third chapter to the strategic plan. And then we ran a community event. Many of you participated in that. We took some of the data that we had collected from the community already, and then we developed that into the goals for the community, which is really the second chapter of this strategic plan. And though there's a lot in this plan, we broke it into 3 themes. And so the first year, we're going to be focusing on staff well-being, diversity, equity, and inclusion. And then in year 2, we're going to focus on measuring impacts. And there's a departure here from what we've done in the past. Largely, though we have done this to some extent, we're going to be a little bit more intentional about this. Historically, libraries are really good at counting things. They're good at counting how many books come into their library and go out. They're really good at counting how many patrons come in and go out. What we want to do now is try to understand better how well we're meeting the goals that the community gave us. And so we want to see where we're moving the needle on some of these really critical things to our community and to the country. And then year 3, we have a focus on lessons learned, and we will continue to adapt. And so each of the strategies in this plan follow the same sort of process where we identify the needs, we do collaborative solutions, then we do implementation, then we do an analysis and revision, and then integration. And then it circles back and we go back from the beginning to identify the needs. So I want to take you now just very briefly through the architecture of this. As I mentioned, we have these 3 chapters. And then on the online, you have the paper copy of this, but on the online version, this is what you'll see. So if you go into the first chapter, which is diversity, equity, and inclusion, you see the goal that the organization has developed. It's to ensure that the Santa Cruz Public Libraries create an organizational culture of equity and inclusion, providing equitable and relevant services to all. Okay, so how are we going to get there? These are our strategies. There's 4 of them, and I'll leave that up on the screen for a second for you to read over. And then more specifically, in order to get there, we have our work plan, which what we've done for the online version is we've created the objectives. So this is really when you see in your packet the work plan, that's the objectives. That's where the rubber hits the road and where we will go after very specific things to try to achieve that much larger goal that we have. And there's a much larger, at the end of your report, you'll see the DEI, or the Diversity, Equity, Inclusion Plan, which has specific benchmarks that we're trying to hit for each of the 3 years that the strategic plan is for the life of the strategic plan. So that's chapter 1. And then chapter 2 has 3 goals, which came from the community. This is the work that many of you did, and that our staff did with hundreds of conversations, surveys with the public, and it boiled down to these 3 goals. The library creates and supports safe and friendly places. The library fosters an inclusive community. The library nurtures a community that supports all members of society. And so in order to get there, this is the first goal. These are the strategies that will support that. And how we will use our physical spaces to do that. And then in addition to that, then this is where the rubber hits the road, and we have very specific objectives. So that was the first goal, and then the library fosters an inclusive community. Big piece of this is implementing the DEI plan. So in many ways, the 3 chapters will speak to each other. So the DEI plan really supports all 3 chapters. And you'll see it's woven into all of the chapters that we have. And then we have the very specific objectives to help us get there. So I'm gonna pull these up, and then I'm gonna just take you through the goals of that we have internally. And there are 6 of those. The library will measure how it has created change in the community and will continually adjust the library's work to meet its goals. So that's number 1. So that's really foundational for us internally. And I'm not going to take you through each of the strategies and objectives for all of these, but I do want to just show you that in some ways, even though this hasn't been approved, we knew the strategic direction for some time on this. So we've started to implement some of these pieces. And so beginning in January, we'll be working with an outside consultant, which is what this called for, to help train staff so that they begin to really wear that lens. When they develop their programs and services from the beginning, they can begin that evaluation process. And what will they be measuring? How will they know they've been successful? And so we're going to begin that project with a group called Knology. It's contracted with the American Library Association. They'll be doing a number of trainings for us through the spring, so that when we develop our programs for the following fall, we'll begin to use some of this criteria. So number 2 is the library will curate a relevant and engaging collection of materials, diverse in content and format, to satisfy the current and anticipated reading, listening, viewing, and learning preferences of the community. The library will continue to develop cutting-edge technology for the community and bridge the digital divide for all community members in Santa Cruz County. The library will continue to strengthen and support learning. The library will support and prepare staff to successfully meet the needs within this plan and to ensure excellent customer service. And then number 6 is the library will enhance community outcomes by effectively aligning its work with the work of its partners in government. We know that if our community is really going to be successful, we need to be at the table with all of our jurisdictions, listening to them, working with them as they develop their strategic plans, so that they're also thinking about us and what we can provide, and vice versa. So that is and really the conclusion of my presentation, and I'm really happy to take any questions that you may have.
Thank you, Assistant Director Howard. I will open the floor for commissioner questions. Commissioner Woll.
Yeah, thank you. And I'm not sure I know how to ask some of these questions, but I did find it a bit confusing, I would say, and probably, I guess, just from the organization of the document. But when I read the headings, like the DEI. Okay, I think I understand what that means. And then the second one about the community needs. I'm thinking that that's about I would think, I would have thought at least that those were about collections and services and reviewing what's there. And then when it gets down to the staff values and organizational needs, I would read that and I thought I understood what, when I read that, I think of it as like you reference about staff well-being and yes, reviewing staff values. What does the what are organizational changes about staffing and managing people and making sure that staff is trained and that staff is competent and staff is retained and such. So but when I go into your details, a lot of those things, like, they don't seem to match up. That a lot of the things about like staff values and organizational needs start talking about collections and creating a relevant collection and such. So, and then the DEI part, as you mentioned, is kind of woven into all of them instead of just organizationally. I would think, yes, that's very clear. DEI, that's a section, and I expect to see all the stuff about that section. So it was just hard for me to wrap myself around understanding. Your presentation was more clear, and I really liked Director Wilburn's summary that said, we're about literacy, and literacy means a lot of different literacies, and all these things contribute to that. But I didn't really get that out of trying to read that document, and I not sure I'm expressing this very well, but that's just some thoughts.
So first, I'd like to say thank you, Commissioner Woll. This is exactly the feedback that we need as we continue to hone down this document. I think just to address some of your questions or comments, I think that within what we found when we looked at the data that we gleaned from the community conversations, from the staff conversations, from those partner conversations, that all of them had sort of echoes of very similar, there was very similar things that each group wanted. I think the DEI piece was pretty clear with every group. It really stood out as, hey, maybe we haven't been as inclusive as we could be with regard to our collections. Hey, maybe we're not as inclusive as we could be with our hiring. And so that, even though that hiring piece really deals with our internal staffing, and so that's where we do have to change some of our internal processes in order to make sure that we are going out and recruiting from different places, right? As an example, same thing with when we're providing safe spaces for our community, kind of what we talked about, we know that members of our community aren't coming into the library. So maybe we need to go out to where they are and try and make them more aware of the various things that we have that they could benefit from. So I think that I hear what you're saying, and I think that's great feedback. Thank you so much. We're going to take that back and we can look at those and really kind of think about how we are placing those. But I think that because those similar threads ran through every aspect of these topics that people called out, it does almost seem like there's pieces of each one woven within the other category. So I think we will work on making that clearer. That's very helpful. Thank you.
Thank you.
I don't have a question, but I have a comment. So I was lucky enough to be included in the very first gigantic meeting that they held in the community meeting room at Capitola, where, you know, it was very, very high level, you know, what do you want your library to be? What do you expect from your library? And then I've had opportunities to touch this document all the way along. And every time I've seen it, it's just gotten better and better and better. And I was on the subcommittee for the LAC, which, you know, sat with Eric and went through it again. And I'm just totally impressed with the whole document. And, you know, even your graphics, you know, it just presented it just really appeals to me. And I think it really captures what the community talked about in that first big meeting. It's kind of fun to see it, you know, really, you know, kind of all dressed up. So anyway, I just wanted to say thank you. I think it's a really nice document. I'm happy that I've been involved with it.
Thank you, Commissioner Wynne. Other questions, comments? Yes, Commissioner Ripma.
So I do understand what Pamela's saying. It is a lot to take in. And to me, it's just a real indicator of how sophisticated the staff and the intentions are. I mean, I'm a bit like Tricia to say it's impressive, and it maybe is hard to understand, but I'm not sure that we need to completely, but I feel pretty sure that Deputy Director Howard does, and so does Director Wilburn, and I'm just very impressed by it, and I think the goals are lofty and worthy. It's really well intended. So, thank you.
Other commissioner questions or comments? I have one, I believe. So as I was going through the document, I looked back at the last iteration of the strategic plan that we're now revising and, you know, re-upping. And one thing that was kind of a header to that plan was the library's vision, mission, and values. And I'm just, a question is, are you carrying that forward? And just in terms of Commissioner Woll's comments, I'm wondering if, you know, one addition of just kind of a grounding point of like, this is the library's mission, vision, and values. You know, this is what we do day in and day out. You know, here's what we're now going to strategically tackle to keep, you know, our work relevant, you know, as we, you know, move forward in this changing dynamic community to fulfill, you know, these things. You know, we can't continue to just, you know, keep our heads down. We've got to lift our gaze and look towards the horizon. And, you know, these are some of the things that we aim to tackle. And to Commissioners Wynne and Ripma's comments, you know, it's really ambitious and really exciting to see, you know, what you guys are going to wrap your arms around. So I guess that's my comments and a question, but just if you guys could maybe comment just on the mission, vision, value piece, that'd be great.
Sure, I'm happy to take this, and Eric, feel free to jump in if you have something additional to add. Yes, I agree with you, and I think, again, this is where we're gathering more information now, but every one of these objectives, every one of these goals comes out of our mission. And I will say this, that we independently, when I first came on to this library system in January, you know, a lot of the staff had already begun doing some of this work. They had already held the community conversations. They had already had staff conversations. And it was really interesting that I saw the two different sets of data and the values were the same. So that says a lot about our community, right? Our community has very similar values to what our library values are. And so on that point, I think that's where all of this springs from. I think we do have some lofty goals in here. We really are, we believe, I think wholeheartedly, that this community can be what we envision it to be and what our values hold true. And that is welcoming of everyone. and that is being able to provide our services and our resources to everyone. And so I think it's just how we get there within this plan. But it all does definitely come back to our mission, vision, and values. And so I think that is a great point that we do want to continue to stress that. It was in our earlier drafts. And so I think we make sure we put that back in on the final. Thank you.
Great, that's very helpful. Thank you. Huge amount of work. Well done. I think you guys have just made tremendous progress. If there's no other immediate commissioner questions, we'll have another chance to circle back. But I just want to do a quick pause to see if we have any public comment on this item.
Chair Bass, we do have one public comment. Elaine Anderson, I see your hand up. Your mic is open. Please state your first and last name, and your time will begin as soon as you start talking.
Hi, my name is Elaine Anderson. I'm a retired library staff member, retired with over 23 years of service to the Santa Cruz Public Libraries. I commend the staff for the strategic plan. I applaud the goal of diversifying the library staff. I have the hope that the library system will go beyond looking to hire diverse ethnicities and genders to include people with diverse education and employment backgrounds. To this end, I would hope that the library works to have more full-time benefit positions that do not require extensive library experience. This may require reorganizing staffing to allow for positions at the library assistant 1 level. Not to get too personal, but I was originally hired when the 1/4 cent sales tax was originally approved by the voters, called Measure B. When Measure B was approved in 1996 and the funds became available in July 1997, staff was approximately doubled in the 2-month period of June and July of 1997. A number of staff members were hired with diverse employment backgrounds. Myself and others with these non-typical previous jobs brought knowledge and skills that were valuable to the system over the years. Getting back to the strategic plan, looking at Focus 3, Year 1, Item 2, it says, identify funding sources for paid internships to encourage young people to consider librarianship. I would suggest that this be opened up to include both librarianship and paraprofessional work in libraries. Thank you for listening and considering my statement.
Thank you for your comment. And Chair Bass, I do not see any additional comments.
Great, thank you, Moderator Jones. Any additional comments with respect to what we just heard or from Deputy Director and Director Wilburn?
I'm happy to comment, Chair Bass. Yes. Thank you for the comment, Elaine Anderson. We are looking at how we can better grow our own. We know, just like many other employers here in Santa Cruz County, we're struggling to find workers to fill our positions. We have started hiring again, so that's the good news. And we're hoping to fill those positions. But as we move forward, we want to ensure that we have a succession plan in place so that as people do leave, we want people to be successful. We know that we only have so many positions to go around, and we want people to progress in their careers. Sometimes that means that they will leave the Santa Cruz Public Library system, but that's okay, right? If they're progressing, and we are happy to bring new people in, young people, and we want to inspire them to maybe choose a career in library services that they hadn't thought of before, whether that's in a professional librarian level or a paraprofessional level. So we will be looking at both of those as we move forward and look at interning people in our library system.
Thank you, Director Wilburn. That's super helpful. Before we move on and conclude this item, and I recognize the time, but Commissioner Mount did share some comments, written comments, and so I did just want to touch on those. with respect to some community feedback in terms of how will folks have the opportunity to provide feedback and continue to engage on the strategic plan as it moves forward. So maybe if you all have any, I know as Deputy Director Howard, you said that this would become available online in February, I believe. Any additional plans in terms of how this will be incorporated into updates to the commission? I know you guys are working on a dashboard, but just if you have any comments with respect to timeline and how we'll continue to hear about progress on the plan.
Thank you. The dashboard is certainly one of them. It will also be coming back to the Joint Powers Board in February for their final vote on this. In addition to that, the plan has a number of benchmarks that we are tasked, the staff are tasked with providing reports to the Library Advisory Commission on various parts of the strategic plan. And that occurs throughout all 3 years of the plan.
And similar to how you all put together the quarterly work plan report, I would assume that this will also kind of take on something similar where those benchmarks will be folded into something like that.
Exactly. And that's so those objectives are really the measurables at this point, but it will continue to evolve with more objectives as we define them and as we go through the evaluation process. But I think the other piece is that there are specific points during the year when we are tasked with coming back to the Library Advisory Commission on the progress of the various aspects of the plan.
Great.
And I just want to make sure that we're clear so that people are not confused. So we are still editing, currently finalizing edits on this strategic plan. We will bring this plan back and probably put it before this commission in January. And then it will go to the board for final approval in February. At that time, we'll be working on setting up the dashboard. And so that's where those objectives, and as we go through, people will be able to see that dashboard and see kind of what we're doing, right, and what we've accomplished. I think another piece to that, which is mentioned in the plan, is to go out and really solicit input from our public. So we're going to be continuing to hold conversations, that's the goal, with our community members along the way so that we can get feedback on how it's working and what we shift, right? Maybe that's not the direction. We started down this path, but once we got there, we learned that maybe we need to do this other piece too. And so that's where this plan is really adaptive, and having that dashboard, the public can go to that, but we'll also hold conversations where the public can provide comment. We're going to be doing surveying of our public. And I know nobody really likes those email surveys to them, but we'll put something up on our website maybe where we can get some instantaneous feedback from people using our services, or, iPads in branches where people could do a quick, like 5-minute survey or 5-question survey to get some feedback. But those are all pieces of what we want to do as we move forward with this plan. And then, yes, we will be presenting that at quarterly reports to the Library Advisory Commission as well as our board of directors.
Fantastic. Thank you. That was very helpful. One last comment or question from Commissioner Mount. There were some inquiries about outreach and services to the Davenport population within the county. So just curious if you all could comment on inclusion of that community and population in outreach efforts in the development of the plan, or how you're thinking about service to that community as an underserved population moving forward.
No, I think that's a great point. And we use, one of those comments referred to the visits from the bookmobile, which we have been using. Its actual mission is to reach more geographically remote areas in our county. And so that is something that we have to continue to assess in terms of how we're deploying it, where we're deploying it, and its frequency.
Great, thank you. If there are no, I have no further questions. Thank you. Are there any other final questions from commissioners? Great. Well done to the whole library team on the progress and the state of the strategic plan at this point. And we'll look forward to seeing the next iteration at our January meeting.
Thank you very much.
That concludes that item on our agenda, and that moves on to general business. So we have 2 items on the general business agenda, item 9. The first is the proposed meeting schedule for 2023. Fairly straightforward. Are there any questions or comments?
Yes, Chairman Bass, I had a couple of questions. Well, first of all, I want to say I'm so excited that Aptos branch library is going to be one of the meeting places in October. So fantastic. We're going to be meeting in a brand new library. So I'm happy about that. I wondered why we're meeting in both April and May. Just, you know, we usually skip a month. Is there a reason in particular to approve a budget or anything like that? Or was it just kind of convenient?
Yeah, I think the meeting typically would fall in April. The May meeting is because the board gets the budget meeting at the beginning of June.
Okay.
And so in order for the Library Advisory Commission to see it first, they would have to have a meeting in May.
That's what I thought.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks so much for the question. Seeing no other questions, I'm going to do a quick check to see if there's any public comment on this item.
Chair Bass, there are no public comments.
Okay, if there are no other questions from commissioners on item 9A, we can look at the recommended action and entertain any motions.
Well, I would move approval of the proposed calendar schedule for 2023.
Thanks, Commissioner Wynne.
I could second that.
Great, and a second from Commissioner Ripma. Clerk Simona Vargas, will you please do a roll call vote?
Jennifer Mount is absent. Mary Ripma,
Aye.
Mike Termini,
Aye.
Pamela Woll,
Aye.
Tricia Wynne,
Aye.
Vice Chair Rena Dubin is absent, and Chair Lindsay Bass.
Aye. And I'll make one comment for Commissioner Mount, which was support for acceptance of the calendar with a request to continue to have an in-person and virtual option to attend. So a question to the team, if hybrid meetings will be feasible when we move from completely virtual to in-person. So maybe something we can talk about here or at our January meeting.
Yeah, I'm happy to. Right now, the plan is to continue with the Zoom meeting through the January meeting. In February, the governor is anticipated at the end of February to lift the order. And therefore meetings would be in person after that. We probably will do hybrid meetings. There are some stipulations and we're still waiting on really the guidelines from the city attorney with regard to how those meetings need to run. There's some talk that if a commissioner is not feeling well, they could remote in. Otherwise, they do need to be in person at those meetings, but we'll get more guidance on that. And we should have that for the January meeting for this body.
Perfect. Thank you. All right. As 9A passed unanimously with 2 members absent, we can move on to item 9B on the agenda, which is the library display policy.
Thank you, Chair Bass. So this is an accept and file for the new library display policy. We've included the original policy in here for you. This new policy is a bit more robust, you know, in understanding the challenges that we face with, you know, posting things in our library and, you know, kind of what we are putting up on our walls, what's going in the display cases. We just want to make sure that we are following appropriate procedures and guidelines as recommended, one by our community, but also by our city attorney, to ensure we're being fair. And this goes in large part towards the equity and inclusion piece that we're talking about in our strategic plan, with regards to, you know, when we're accepting art exhibits, are we making sure that everyone in the community has an opportunity to have their work displayed on our walls? And so this new policy kind of expands those opportunities. And we are happy to take any questions that you might have.
Any questions from commissioners?
No.
Moderator Jones, do we have any public comment on this item?
Chair Bass, there are no public comments.
All right, then. I'll just say agreed. It looks like a very robust policy and an improvement that will help you all meet your new goals and objectives around diversity, equity, inclusion. So I'm glad to see that. So we'll entertain motions now on this item. Are there any motions on the recommended action?
Is this actionable? Is it just file, receive and file, or
This is
I'll move it if we need to.
general business item. So we should move. So I have a move from Commissioner Termini. Is there a second?
Second.
From Commissioner Wynne. Thank you. Clerk Samantha Vargas, will you please do a roll call vote?
Jennifer Mount is absent. Mary Ripma,
Aye.
Mike Termini,
Aye.
Pamela Woll,
Aye.
Tricia Wynne,
Aye.
Vice Chair Rena Dubin is absent, and Chair Lindsay Bass.
Aye. So item 9B passes unanimously with 2 members absent. Thank you so much, everyone. All right, we're in the home stretch. Item 10 on the agenda is the scheduled upcoming meeting. As we've mentioned, that'll be January 9th. It will be virtual. That will be our last fully virtual meeting, pending input from the governor and guidance from the director and city attorney's office. And unless there are any questions or comments on that, I believe we can adjourn for the evening.
Thank you all.
Thanks so much, everyone.
Thank you.